For those keeping up to date with Stalker 2, I'm sure you're plenty aware of the fact that there's a few things not in the game that we'd like to have. A few such popular items would be binoculars and night vision goggles. Of course, when everything despawns after 85 meters, this isn't really useful. But, according to some screenshots found on Reddit, binoculars do exist in the files of Stalker 2. The post reads, "There is definitely an equipment asset for binoculars in Stalker 2's files. It's grouped with other devices such as the artifact detectors in the PDA. Hopefully, someday, we will see them used in-game." Users in the comments section speculate and talk about what else was cut from the game, wondering what else we might never see. There's a lot of things that got removed versus 0.3.0 from 2023. Of course, 0.3 only had placeholders, but they were there, this user says, and 1.0 is missing so much. I'm really pissed about the missing 59 quests compared to 0.3, but there are gaps in the quest IDs that could mean that there are even more that got cut. From the devices, I was most hyped for the Oko, or Eye, detector. It's in the art book. It was available as an item in 0.3, but crashed the game because it didn't have a model. The 1.0.2 debug menu is missing the spawn string. Actually, a lot of spawn strings got removed, except for the Flame faction. I'm more weirded out by the Flame faction being left in than GSC actually cleaning up the game files for the first time ever. Also, there are spawn and reputation strings for 4 new mutants. I'm yet to look at 3D models, but I hope there are some new cool things there. If you're curious to hear more about the 0.3 build, you're going to have to download the build yourself. There's no videos about it on YouTube, because GSC has struck them all down. One popular consensus is that the Flame faction could be future DLC content. But who really knows? And as for the 59 cut quests, a lot of those could be placeholders and tests, so the number that we're seeing may not be the actual number. To go back to binoculars, it's a lot like using a scope on a sniper rifle. What's the point if they just spawn in almost directly in front of you? There's no point to set up somewhere long distance, scout out a location, whatever, if you can just sprint in, do whatever you need to do, and sprint back out because they'll just fucking despawn anyway. You know, nothing really chases me in this game. Like, I haven't had anything persist and actually, come after me and, like I've had to deal with it. I just run in, do a quest, and I can fuck off immediately after. It's not even like I'm not really feeling a sense of danger. It's just like I can just get in and get out really quick. There's no sense of urgency. There's nothing, man. One of the top questions in the thread was, because NPCs use them, it must be in the files. However, these binoculars are grouped in with the other player equipment, so who knows, really? One interesting point mentioned is that binoculars are insane load stress for an open world game, especially one ran in Unreal 5. The entire optimization goes out of the window every time you pull out binoculars because the game has to start loading assets that it didn't have to, and then unload them again when you put it away. It's not like it can't be done, but it's not the first item you want to add, like the last one really. And before the 5 heads start talking about scopes on rifles, it's a similar issue but different. Not to mention, if you actually go and try a scope right now, you will see where the game struggles to load the textures. It's just not ideal, but they couldn't just release the game without scopes. That's true. There's a good bit of things they could release the game without, and a couple of things they've tried to get away with that they really haven't been able to get away with, but there's a couple of things they would absolutely definitely need to release with. Scopes is one of them. In my opinion, binoculars would be too, so would night vision goggles, right? But, I mean, come on. All of these things are understandably staples. There's something, I guess you can release without them, but they just really must be having issues, I guess. To dig a little bit deeper, another commenter says, it's listed as a static mesh. Actual equipment is a skeletal mesh asset. And the poster says, there is a skeletal mesh as well, though only used for NPCs at the moment. There is also an old prototype icon for binoculars for the UI, but it's of course unused in-game. Now, I'm not a developer myself. I haven't touched UE5 apart from playing it, so I can't speak for the validity of these claims, but they very well could be true, as well as the OP responding with the skeletal mesh comment. After skimming over the remainder of the comments, it just seems like they're summing up what we've already went over, that the game released in a terrible state, and because of that, we haven't gotten these things. There's been a few more bits of new information that we've learned about, which is quite interesting, as always, but hey, I don't know. For me personally, it might be a bit of a stupid issue to get hung up on, but if you've ever played Shadow of Chernobyl, the bolt and the binoculars are the two very first things that you have, besides the pistol that Wolf gives you, but still, they're the things that you first have in the world, the things that help the world building, the things that, you can scout out the world, look at NPCs, look at mutants, see the environment interact with itself. If you're not throwing a bolt to see if you're going to walk into a whirligig, you're probably going to have your binoculars out to see if there's anything up ahead, if there's bandits that are going to ambush you. To try and put it a better way, I guess I'd say that they're just more immersion building tools, a better way to get into the game and enjoy it. I guess a similar comparison would be if you could only launch with the quick melee action, pressing V on the keyboard instead of actually being able to have a knife or having knives at all. Well, why would you care about knives if you could just, hit someone with the butt of your gun? You can still melee, so it's the same, right? No, it's not the same. It's definitely not the same. That's sort of the point I'm trying to make, and if you've been a fan of this series for a while, it's definitely a point you understand. To any newcomers to the series, they'd probably be like, oh, wow, you're really just picking the stupidest issues to fight over. No, there's a point. Anyway, I just wanted to say that yes, binoculars do exist in Stalker 2, but now it's a matter of time until we see them. But the question is, when?